cried before a wedding. That was it. All right then. Let's get this party started. A couple of things. First of all, just make sure all your phones are on silent. Nobody wants to hear the On Wisconsin fight song during a wedding. Also, on after the ceremony, there will be a receiving line up the hill here. So if you can just hang back and let that get set up, that'd be awesome. So anyway, here we are. And when you guys called me a few months back, I kind of knew Brandon wanted something because he kept calling me until he got me. And, I was thinking that this is my second McCormick wedding officiating, so I feel pretty lucky. I feel extremely honored. And I was thinking, like, what would the reason be that you guys asked me to do it? And I thought maybe it was because 30 years ago, Brandon's friend, Caitlin, made a fateful trip to Wisconsin through some epic weather and witnessed what I thought was a fairy tale wedding in Boston. That was a great week. Somehow, if none of you have been to an Italian wedding, put it on your bucket list. It's quite fun. Of course, as all you know, I out-punted my coverage and married Madeline. She had to settle for me, but the consolation prize is she got my family.
Yes.
And that is a true prize. It's been fantastic. So anyway, 4 years ago, next month, was Caitlin and Dan's wedding, and this wedding was just slightly different. Little slightly different. So when Brandon and Emily, we talked back at Mike and Barb's, I had a bunch of questions for them. What's the format? Is there any music? Do you guys want any readings? They're like, huge pause. And they're like, just kept smiling at each other and laughing. And I'm like, they don't really give a crap about the details at all. Nothing. It was fantastic. Slightly different than Caitlin's 3-page color-coded itinerary. But look how awesome that turned out. And as I told her last night, I think Dan has passed the test. We're going to keep it. I did beat him in euchre. Sarah and I beat him in euchre last night. So, anyway, I just was sitting there looking at these two with these grins and realizing that they are just so happy and so in love. So anyway, we talked a little bit on that porch about how things came to be, and it was just a great story. And the fact of the matter is, we really didn't know if Beep would actually make it to these days, because if you think back to his early years after he was born, on December 1984, when I was at my college graduation with the only suit I owned, trying to be the Funko, I was throwing Brandon up and down, and Bob was like, dude, you might not want to do that. He then projectile vomited all over me. But that was great. Then I come back out for Christmas a couple years later, and I'm joking around with Brandon. He decides that he might want to just take a huge bite out of my right ass cheek. And I reacted, Barb was like, what did he do? I said, he bit me. I shouldn't have said that. So she puts an action plan in place. Put Brandon on the couch, and he sat there and he did not cry. He just sat there like, I don't care how much this hurts, I am not going to cry. And then now you look at this, and you look at Brandon, and you say, this is the man in front of me that is the strength of character. The kind of person that he's become is just, it's heartwarming and touching. The kind of person that would be the best friend and a partner a person could ask for. We really didn't know at the time that Trent would turn out to be the problem child. But thank God for Sarah. Got him off the path. So twists and turns, we go down life's roads. And when I mean roads, I mean these country roads that we have here. Emily and Brandon got together, and if you had to write a movie, which we might want to produce in Hollywood, it would be called Finding Love Not So Accidentally on County Trunk M. I have no idea what trunk means, but we all know Dad was a mailman, and he said trunk after every county P, county whatever. I still have no idea what that means. Anyway, we sat on that porch this summer, and we talked about how you got together. It was classic. And I kept sitting there like, how can two people keep smiling so much and laughing? And I just could feel this love and this respect pouring out of there to the point where it was a hot day. I was thinking about getting the hose to cool you guys down. But then, I guess Brandon was the only one that didn't know that he was the most eligible bachelor in Iowa, Grant, Crawford, Dane, the state of Wisconsin, northeast Iowa. But anyway, and I was talking to Emily's mom about this last night when Emily was starting to think about finding a life partner. She kept saying, this dude's name keeps coming up, this Brandon McCormick. And Brandon McCormick's name kept coming up from, quote unquote, people I trust, which is another good sign, So then one day, the best part about this whole thing is that Emily moves to M, which what are the chances? And Angie calls and says, hey, we're going for a walk. Brandon's out mowing the lawn. You can get a look at it. And she's like, dude, stalker much? Like, I'm just not 100% comfortable with this. So she throws her shoes on, heads out, and yeah, he was out there. And they got to say hi. And she turned to Angie and said, man, God, he's so cute. I don't know who she was talking about. So the lesson, we look for lessons in life, and you look at lessons, and there's a great lesson. Because Emily, her feet hurt, and she was getting blisters. And if you look at life and you say, almost every time in life, the blisters are worth it. And this was the time. So at this point, B knows nothing. He's like, just purely hanging out. And then Matt and Juliet get involved, and there's the infamous dinner. And by this time, I think the whole school and the town of Muscadet, Blue River Basketball, all knew that this blessed event was going to happen. And she turned to Juliet and said, I'm just so nervous. And then when she got to the dinner, walked in, all those nerves just went away. So, Brandon, Mr. Suave. Anyway, getting back to when we were out there that summer, this past summer, it's fun when you play word association game. And I said to these guys, well, what words come to mind when you think of each other? And we all know what they would say. They said, the biggest heart, best friend to everybody, the sweetest person I know, the hardest working person I know, and then my favorite, easy to be with. That was my favorite. Anyway, then being here and seeing the massive support you guys have in the community is really quite touching. I think you had like 65 people at your bachelorette party. But, so last night, Emily told me this story, which was so touching. Before she left school, she was taking a half day yesterday, trying to leave on time. And when I'm going to screw this up, but one of the kids said, oh my God, you're leaving and you're going to get married and you're coming back as a married person. And as this word got out, all these kids and people started cheering for her. And I'm thinking, like, that doesn't happen. You don't do that for somebody who's not an amazing person. And of course, I was crying my ass out last night. She was crying all the way home. But that is just a symbol of the type of person we're talking about here. All righty. So anyway, as you come to this marriage, and you bring with you 4 amazing souls. Mm-hmm. And when there's children in the relationship, and everyone can see, and what was clearly amazing is how Blake and Graham and Cora and Blair get along. It's just watching them come down the hill was amazing. And if you know Madeline and myself, you know that we hate words that qualify people. And the words on siblings are complete bullshit. Things like step, or half, or full, or blood, or adopted. That means nothing. It's sibling. Your siblings, your brothers and sisters. There are no caveats in families. A blended family is a blessing, and now Blair has older siblings to share life's experiences, and most importantly, she has 2 big brothers. And those 2 big brothers will kick anyone's ass who touches them. And I know that because in 1968, on the Muscadet playground, I was getting tortured by some kid, and out of my sight came a blur, and it was my brother Mike who beat the Jesus out of that kid. And I thought, man, that guy is now 6 feet tall in my eyes, until we got off the bus and he beat me up. Still can't stand it. Anyway, You know, you look at times like this, and you look at things like, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie 50 First Dates. Really bad rom-com. But it was a great movie. It was a movie about a man, Henry Roth, who was played by by Adam Sandler. And he meets a woman, Lucy, and they spend a magical day together in Hawaii. One day. And at the end of that day, they were in love. Madly, madly in love. Until the next day, when Lucy completely freaks out and leaves the house. And Henry finds out she has amnesia. So he's like, did he pack it in and go home? No. What he did is every day for the rest of his life, he made her fall in love with him again.
Oh.
And when I sit and look at Brandon and Emily, I look at two people who want to spend the rest of their life falling in love with each other every single day. And it's not easy. We know it's work. We know there's tough times, but we know that the lesson has taught us that in the long run, it's worth it, just like the blisters. And the best part about this whole thing is the two of you have an amazing relationship, and the best part about it is that you have 4 children who are looking at you in this relationship, and now you're a role model for them to develop strong relationships for the rest of their life. And that's the most important thing that comes out of that. And with that said, my Fred Graham gets to come up and say a few words. Right by where I am.
For those who don't know me, my name is Graham. I first met Brandon when I was 10 years old. I remember when I first met him, I wasn't sure if he was right for my mom until I found out he wrestled. Then that totally just changed my mind. And I wouldn't want any person in the world to be by the wrestling mat than Brandon. And I love that he shows up for my school and sporting events. He talks about each game, and I know that when I wrestle, he's just there for me. And he even coached me at state. I've got to spend a lot of time with Brandon, and he's taught me a lot of things along the way. He lets me drive the tractor and do things that my mom wouldn't do and make me. I know that Brandon will be the best stepdad ever, and I can't wait to give him gray hairs just like I give my mom. There's so much I love about Brandon, but what I love most is how he loves my mom.
Aww.
I love you, Mom.
All right. That was awesome. All right, now to the things that we have to do, right? It's called the Declaration of Intent. So the proper response would be I do, but if you don't, you're going to have to change plans. But we don't want to waste the food. So, Emily, do you take Brandon as your husband, offering him your love and encouragement, your trust and respect from this day forward, and continue to grow together as a couple? Brandon, do you take Emily as your wife, offering her your love and encouragement, your trust and respect from this day forward as you continue to grow together as partners? I do. Okay, now for both of you. Emily and Brandon, each of you and your children, Blake, Graham, Cora, and Blair, are individuals. And each of you and each of them have their own life goals and aspirations. Do you solemnly swear before your family to cherish, unconditionally love, guide, and nurture, and to the best of your ability, help them reach